Jeffrey's chest tightened as he stared at the door, his hands trembling slightly in his lap. "Tom, please," he said quietly, his voice shaking. "Tell my dads I'm sick or something, I don't want my brother here." Tom knelt down in front of him, keeping his voice calm and steady. "Hey, look at me, Jeff, it's gonna be okay, we'll take this one step at a time, all right?" Jeffrey shook his head. "You don't understand, every time he comes, everything gets loud, I can't handle it today." Tom nodded, understanding more than Jeffrey thought. "All right, I hear you. First, let's get you comfortable, yeah? Then we'll figure out what to tell your dads." Jeffrey hesitated, then gave a small nod. Tom gently helped him adjust in his wheelchair, making sure his posture was right so he wouldn't feel strained. He moved carefully, respectfully, making sure Jeffrey felt safe the whole time. "Let's get you cleaned up and into something fresh," Tom said softly. "You'll feel better, I promise." Jeffrey let out a quiet breath. "Okay." A few minutes passed in silence, just the soft sounds of Tom helping him get settled. When everything was done, Tom draped a blanket over Jeffrey's lap. "There," Tom said with a small smile, "much better." Jeffrey looked down, then back up. "Thanks, Tom." Tom stood beside him. "Now about your brother, we don't have to lie, but we can tell your dads you're overwhelmed and need space. That's fair, Jeff. You're allowed to feel that way." Jeffrey swallowed, thinking about it. "You really think they'll understand?" Tom gave a reassuring nod. "Yeah, and if it gets too much, I'll be right here with you the whole time. You're not dealing with this alone." Jeffrey finally relaxed a little in his chair. "Okay, let's try." Tom gave his shoulder a gentle squeeze. "That's all you gotta do, just try." Ron stood near the kitchen doorway, his voice low but firm. "Will, he still can't see Peter, not right now." Will let out a frustrated sigh, running a hand through his hair. "Ron, come on, Jeffrey needs to stop acting like a victim. Peter is still family, he made a mistake." Ron's expression tightened immediately. "Don't say that." Will frowned. "What, it's the truth." "No," Ron said, shaking his head. "That's your truth, not Jeffrey." Will crossed his arms. "So we're just going to keep them apart forever." Ron took a step closer, his tone calm but heavy. "Jeffrey is overwhelmed, he's scared, and whether you agree with it or not, that's real to him." Will didn't respond right away. Ron continued, softer now. "You didn't see how he reacted the last time, the shaking, the panic. He's not being dramatic, he's trying to cope." Will looked away, jaw tense. "Peter feels like he's being shut out." "And Jeffrey feels like he's not safe," Ron replied. "So right now, Jeffrey comes first." There was a long silence between them. Will finally sighed again, quieter this time. "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying," Ron answered, "we don't force this. Not today, not until Jeffrey says he's ready, if he ever is." Will hesitated. "And what do we tell Peter?" Ron glanced toward the hallway where Jeffrey and Tom were. "We tell him the truth, just not the version that blames Jeffrey." Will nodded slowly, though it was clear he was still struggling with it. "All right, but this can't go on forever." Ron gave a small, understanding nod. "Maybe not, but healing doesn't happen on a schedule either." From down the hall, Jeffrey's voice could faintly be heard, uncertain but trying, and Ron knew, for now, that was enough. Peter's voice cracked slightly over the phone. "Dad, I know Jeffrey doesn't want to see me, but please tell him Mom wanted to go on her terms. She asked me to help." Will closed his eyes for a moment, leaning against the counter. "We told him that, Peter, but he still blames you." There was a pause on the other end. "She had cancer," Peter said quietly. "She was in pain, I didn't just decide that on my own." Will's voice softened. "We know, Ron and I both know." Peter swallowed hard. "Then why does Jeffrey understand that?" Will sighed, heavy and conflicted. "Because he's hurting, and to him it feels like you took something from him before he was ready to let go." Another silence. Peter's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "I miss my brother." Will looked down at the floor, his expression full of sympathy. "Ron, and I know that, son, we really do." Peter took a shaky breath. "I don't expect him to forgive me right away, I don't want him to hate me forever." Will straightened slightly. "Then give him time, that's the only thing that might help right now." Peter hesitated. "Do you think he'll ever talk to me again?" Will glanced toward the hallway where Jeffrey was. "I can't promise that, but I can promise we're not giving up on either of you." Peter nodded even though Will couldn't see it. Okay, just tell him I love him, even if he doesn't want to hear it. Will's voice softened even more. I will. After the call ended, Will stood there for a moment, the weight of both his sons pressing on him, one full of regret, the other full of pain, and not knowing how to bring them back together. Jeffrey looked between his dads, his hands gripping the arms of his wheelchair. Dads, how are you? Ron gave a small, gentle smile. I'm okay, bud. Will nodded, yeah, I'm good. Jeffrey hesitated, then his voice shifted, more tense. You got off the phone with the murderer. The word hung heavy in the room. Jeffrey, Ron said softly but firmly, don't. She was dying, Jeff, Will cut in, his tone strained. Your mother was in a lot of pain. Jeffrey's eyes filled, his voice shaking. I have pain every day and I don't want to die. Tom, standing nearby, stepped in gently. Jeff, it might have been different for her, we don't know everything she was feeling. Jeffrey shook his head harder now. So she was in so much pain that she wanted to die before her disabled son could say goodbye. The room went silent. Ron's face softened and he walked closer, kneeling slightly so he was at Jeffrey's level. Hey, listen to me, it wasn't about not loving you. Jeffrey looked away, then what was it about? Will exhaled slowly, trying to keep his composure. It was about her suffering and making a choice she thought she needed to make, not a choice against you. Jeffrey's voice cracked, but it feels like it was against me. Tom gently rested a hand on Jeffrey's shoulder. That feeling makes sense, you didn't get the chance to say goodbye the way you needed to. Ron nodded, and that's a real loss, Jeff, a very real one. Jeffrey's grip loosened slightly but tears started falling. He helped her, Peter helped her, how am I supposed to just be okay with that? Will stepped closer now, his voice quieter than before. You're not supposed to be okay right now, no one's asking that. Jeffrey looked up, hurt and confused. Then why does everyone keep telling me to understand? Ron answered gently, because understanding and forgiveness aren't the same thing. You can take your time with both or neither. Jeffrey leaned back in his chair, overwhelmed. I don't know if I can ever look at him the same. Tom squeezed his shoulder lightly. Then don't force it, just focus on getting through today. Ron nodded, that's enough for now. Jeffrey closed his eyes, tears still falling, but for the first time no one was pushing him to feel differently. And in that small space of acceptance he finally let himself just feel the pain. Jeffrey wiped at his eyes, trying to steady himself after everything. Tom, he said softly, do you want to have a drink with me and my dad's? Tom gave him a small, warm smile, though his tone stayed gentle and professional. I'll come sit with you guys, but I'm on the clock so I can't drink. Jeffrey gave a faint nod. Yeah, that's okay, I just don't want to sit alone. Tom stepped a little closer to his wheelchair. You won't be alone, I've got you. Ron pulled out a chair at the table. That sounds like a good idea, we could all use a moment to just breathe. Will nodded, grabbing a couple of glasses. Yeah, no more heavy talk for a bit. As they settled in, Jeffrey glanced between them, his voice quieter now. Can we just talk about normal stuff? Tom smiled. Of course, what do you want to talk about? Jeffrey thought for a second, something dumb like movies or something. Will let out a small chuckle. I can do dumb, you still think The Lion King is the saddest movie ever. Jeffrey huffed a tiny laugh. It is the saddest, don't even start. Ron shook his head. Nah, I still say Toy Story 3 had us all crying. Tom leaned against the wall, relaxed but attentive. You guys are both wrong, but I'm staying neutral on this one. For the first time that day, Jeffrey smiled, just a little, small but real. And for now, that was enough. The nurse stepped in front of the hallway, keeping her voice calm but firm. Sir. You're not allowed back there, Jeffrey doesn't have you on his approved list. Peter's frustration boiled over instantly. Then bring him out, I have a right to see my brother. The nurse didn't move. I understand you're upset, but I can't do that without his consent. Peter ran a hand through his hair, packing. This is ridiculous, he's my brother. From down the hall, Will's voice came quickly. Peter, hey. Peter turned. Dad, are you serious right now? They won't even let me see him. Will approached carefully. Lower your voice, this isn't helping. Peter shook his head. No, what's not helping is everyone acting like I don't exist. Ron stepped in behind Will, his tone steady. You do exist, but Jeffrey set a boundary. Peter's jaw tightened. A boundary? He's shutting me out like I did something unforgivable. Ron met his eyes. To him, it feels that way right now. Peter's voice cracked despite himself. I was helping Mom, you both know that. Will nodded, we do, but Jeffrey not there yet. Peter looked between them, hurt and anger mixing together. So what, he just gets to pretend I'm dead. The nurse spoke again, softer now. If you'd like, I can let him know you're here, it'll be his choice if he wants to see you. Peter hesitated, breathing hard. Fine, tell him, but don't twist it, just tell him I'm here. Ron nodded slightly, that's fair. As the nurse walked down the hall, Peter leaned against the wall, the anger draining just enough to show what was underneath. I just want my brother back, he said quietly. Will placed a hand on his shoulder. We know, and so does he, even if he can't face it yet. Jeffrey's body tensed, his hands gripping his chair again. Tom, tell the nurse if Peter comes, call the cops ASAP, that'll give him the hint. Tom didn't respond right away. He stepped closer, lowering himself to Jeffrey's level so his voice stayed calm and steady. Hey, I hear how serious you are, Tom said gently. You want space and you want to feel safe. Jeffrey nodded quickly. Yeah, I don't want him near me. Tom gave a small nod. Okay, we can make that clear without escalating things right away. Jeffrey frowned. What do you mean? Tom kept his tone reassuring. We tell the nurse and staff that Peter is not allowed back here under any circumstances. If he refuses to leave or causes a scene, then security can step in. Ron stepped in softly. That way your boundary is respected, without making things worse than they need to be. Jeffrey looked between them, still upset. I just don't want to deal with him at all. Will nodded, and you won't have to, we'll handle it. Tom added, you're in control of who you see, that matters, let's start there. Jeffrey's shoulders dropped slightly, so he won't get in. Tom shook his head, not unless you say so. After a moment, Jeffrey let out a breath. Okay, just make sure they know. Ron gave a reassuring nod. We will. Tom gently squeezed his shoulder. You're safe, Jeff, we've got you. Ron stepped outside, closing the door behind him as he approached Peter. Son, you need to leave, he doesn't want to see you. Peter's face fell, but he shook his head. Dad, I just want to talk, it was Mom's idea, not mine. Ron sighed, his voice heavy. He's mad at her too. Peter looked down, kicking lightly at the ground, but it still feels fresh to him, it's been 3 years. Ron nodded slowly. For you, it's been time to process, for him, it hasn't moved the same way. Peter's voice cracked. I didn't think it would still be like this. Ron stepped a little closer. Grief doesn't follow a clock, Peter, and neither does anger. Peter wiped his face quickly. I said goodbye to her, I held her hand, I thought I was doing the right thing. I know you did, Ron said gently. And deep down, I think Jeffrey knows that too, but knowing something and feeling it are two different things. Peter let out a shaky breath. So what am I supposed to do, just stay away forever? Ron shook his head. No, but right now you respect what he's asking for, that's how you show him you still care. Peter looked back toward the building. I just wanted to tell him I miss him to his face. Ron's voice softened, and maybe one day you will. Peter swallowed hard. Yeah, maybe. Ron rested a hand on his shoulder. Go home for now, give him space and give yourself some too. Peter hesitated, then gave a small nod, even though it clearly hurt. Okay, I'll go. As he turned to leave, he looked back one more time, hopping even now that somehow his brother would change his mind. Tom stepped over, keeping his voice calm and gentle. Jeffrey, do you need anything? Jeffrey avoided eye contact, his voice quieter now. Yeah, I need a diaper change, but I don't want to talk about him anymore. Tom nodded right away, no hesitation. Okay, we won't talk about him. He gave a small, reassuring smile. Let's just focus on getting you comfortable. Jeffrey let out a breath, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. Thanks. Tom worked carefully and respectfully, keeping things as routine and calm as possible, giving Jeffrey the space he asked for. No heavy conversations, just quiet support. After a few minutes, Tom adjusted him back into his chair and made sure everything felt right. There we go, Tom said softly, all set. Jeffrey nodded, looking a little more settled. Yeah, better. Tom stayed nearby, his tone light. Want to put something on, TV, music, anything to take your mind off things. Jeffrey thought for a second. Yeah, something easy. Tom smiled. Got it, easy it is. And for the moment, the room stayed quiet, no tension, no pressure, just a small pocket of calm Jeffrey really needed. Jeffrey leaned back in his wheelchair, his voice soft and tired. Tom, put my headphones on me, I'm sleepy. Tom nodded immediately. Yeah, okay. He picked up the headphones carefully and helped place them over Jeffrey's ears, adjusting them so they sat comfortably without pressing too hard. Volume okay? Tom asked gently. Jeffrey gave a small nod. Yeah. Tom reached for a blanket and draped it over Jeffrey's lap and legs, tucking it in just enough to make him comfortable without restricting him. There you go, Tom said softly, you can rest. Jeffrey's shoulders finally relaxed as the room quieted under the music. His breathing slowed, the tension from earlier slowly fading. Tom stayed nearby, making sure everything was settled. I'm right here if you need anything, all right. Jeffrey closed his eyes. Okay. The noise of the day finally felt far away as he drifted into sleep, safe and calm in the quiet moment. Will, look at Jeffra and sane Tom. Whenever he gets stress he told me and Ron to do that for him. Expuichly HRE move in with us when his momt and Ron ex-wife got sick. Will stood in the doorway for a moment, watching Jeffrey resting quietly with his headphones on. He lowered his voice as he spoke to Tom. Look at Jeffrey, when he gets stressed he tells me and Ron to do that for him, especially since he moved in with us after his mom, Ron's ex-wife, got sick. Tom nodded slowly, keeping his tone respectful. It sounds like he's been carrying a lot for a long time. Will exhaled, glancing back at his son. Yeah, and he shuts down like this when it all piles up. Sleep is kind of how he resets. Tom crossed his arms lightly. Then you're doing the right thing by letting him rest. Will's expression softened a bit. We try, it's not always easy balancing him and everything with Peter too. Tom looked toward Jeffrey again. Both of them are dealing with grief in different ways. Will nodded, quieter now. Yeah, just different timelines. A brief silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, just heavy with understanding. Will finally said, thanks for staying with him today. Tom gave a small shake of his head. Of course, that's what he needed. They both looked at Jeffrey for a moment, no conflict, no arguing, just calm breathing under a blanket. And for the first time in a while, that felt like something stable. Tom glanced toward the hallway for a moment before speaking, keeping his tone careful. Will, don't get offended, but why did Ron place Jeffrey in this group home, if you don't mind me asking? Will exhaled slowly, like he'd answered this question in his head many times before. It wasn't like that, he said. Sarah had him full-time at first. Peter knew his care back then more than me or Ron did. Tom listened quietly. Will continued, Jeffrey actually told Ron and me about this place himself. He didn't trust Peter after everything that happened between them. Tom tilted his head slightly, processing it. So what you're saying is, Jeffrey no longer trusts Peter, so he placed himself in this facility. Will shook his head quickly. No, that's not it, he didn't place himself like that. He stepped a little closer, lowering his voice. He needed support, real support. Sarah couldn't manage his care anymore when she got sick, and Ron and I stepped in. We made the decision together with him, not against him. Tom nodded slowly. So it was more about stability and safety, not punishment or separation. Exactly, Will said. And Jeffrey's not here because he's being pushed away. He's here because this is where he can actually function when things get overwhelming. Tom looked back toward Jeffrey resting in the chair. That helps me understand him a lot more. Will's voice softened. Yeah, he's not rejecting Peter just to be difficult. He's reacting to what he thinks happened to him. Tom stayed quiet for a moment, then said, sounds like all of them are carrying something heavy. Will nodded, they are, just different pieces of the same mess. Ron came back into the room, his expression tired but serious. He gently lifted the headphones off Jeffrey's ears so he could hear him clearly. Jeffrey, Ron said, you, me, and Peter dinner tomorrow, or we figure something else out. Either someone else helps pay for this group home, or you go live with your brother. Jeffrey's face tightened immediately, overwhelmed by the sudden choice. He looked away. Fine, can you put my headphones back on me? Ron paused, watching him carefully, then he nodded. Okay, I'm here. He placed the headphones back over Jeffrey's ears, softer this time, making sure they were comfortable. Jeffrey exhaled, fine. Ron stayed beside him for a moment, lowering his voice even though Jeffrey might not fully hear it anymore. We're not trying to pressure you, we just need to figure out what's next together. Jeffrey didn't respond, just leaned back again, music returning, shutting the noise of the conversation back out. Ron looked at Tom and Will, his expression conflicted. We can't keep bouncing between all this without a plan. Will nodded slowly, I know. Tom glanced toward Jeffrey, then back at them. But whatever plan you make, he needs to feel like he's part of it, not trapped in it. Ron let out a quiet breath. Yeah, I hear you. And for the moment, they all stood in uneasy silence, trying to figure out how to move forward without breaking what was already fragile. Tom's expression shifted immediately, more serious than before. Ron, I can take a day off from the group home and still help Jeffrey, he said carefully. But I'm not going to lie to him or trick him into going somewhere he doesn't want to go. Ron frowned, frustration creeping in. We'll pay you double, just get him to our house tomorrow night. Say whatever you have to, I don't care, the billing department already has our address. Tom shook his head firm. No, I do care. Will glanced between them, tension rising. Tom continued, calm but direct. Jeffrey already feels like he's not being heard. If I lie to him, I break his trust, and once that's gone, I can't help him at all. Ron rubbed his forehead. We're running out of options. I get that, Tom said, but forcing him or tricking him isn't going to fix anything. It'll just make things worse, especially with Peter. Will nodded slowly. He's right, if Jeffrey finds out, we lose him completely. Ron looked back toward Jeffrey, who was resting with his headphones on. His voice dropped. So what do we do then? Tom answered, you ask him, honestly, you give him a choice he can actually trust. Ron let out a long breath. He's just going to say no. Maybe, Tom said, but at least it'll be a real answer, not one built on a lie. Will added quietly, and that's the only way this has any chance of working. Ron didn't respond right away, but the edge in his voice softened just a little, caught between urgency and the reality that forcing things could break Jeffrey even more. Pat stood by the doorway, her tone firm but not harsh. Tom, when you're done, come to my office. Tom glanced over his shoulder. 1 sec, Mom. Pat crossed her arms slightly. As soon as you're done. Tom nodded. Yeah, I got it. He turned back to Jeffrey, making sure everything was settled, headphones in place, blanket adjusted, chair positioned comfortably. You good? Tom asked softly. Jeffrey gave a small nod, eyes half closed. Yeah. Tom gave a faint smile. All right, I'll be right back if you need me. With that, he stepped out into the hallway and headed toward Pat's office, his expression shifting, knowing this conversation was probably going to be serious. Pat closed the office door behind Tom, her tone all business. Jeffrey Armtad will be off our caseload after 1 p.m. tomorrow. Tom blinked. They want lunch at their house. Pat nodded. Yes, and you're not telling Jeffrey. Tom's expression hardened. What if I do? Pat didn't hesitate. Then you'll need a new job, you pick. Tom let out a frustrated breath. Mom, that's not fair to Jeffrey. Pat's voice stayed steady, but there was pressure behind it. This is still a business at the end of the day. We need space for other clients. At least Jeffrey's family is trying to make it easier. Tom shook his head. He's not dumb, Mom. He's going to figure it out. Pat sighed slightly. I know. There was a heavy silence. Tom ran a hand through his hair. So what? Just lie to him until he's out the door. Pat didn't answer right away, then said quietly, I'm asking you to handle it professionally. Tom looked down for a moment, clearly torn. Professional shouldn't mean dishonest. Pat softened just a little, and sometimes honest doesn't keep the doors open. Tom didn't respond, but the conflict was written all over his face, caught between doing right by Jeffrey and keeping his job. Outside the office, the hallway was quiet, and Jeffrey sat unaware, resting, while decisions about his life were being made without him. The next day, the room felt different, quieter, heavier. Tom helped Jeffrey get changed, moving more slowly than usual like he was trying to hold on to the moment a little longer. Once Jeffrey was settled back into his chair, everything adjusted just right. There was a pause. Then suddenly, Jeffrey leaned forward and hugged him. Tom froze for a second, then gently hugged him back. "I'll miss you in this place," Jeffrey said softly. Tom pulled back slightly surprised. "Jeffrey, how did you know?" Jeffrey gave a small, sad smile. "I was invited to lunch yesterday. They don't do lunch with me unless they're going to tell me something." Tom's expression dropped. And Jeffrey continued, "You were acting weird after you left your mom's office." Tom looked down. "And people are packing my stuff," Jeffrey added quietly. There was nothing left to hide. Tom exhaled. "I'm sorry, I didn't want you to find out like that." Jeffrey shook his head slightly. "It's okay, I already knew, I just wanted to hear it from someone who wouldn't lie to me." Tom's voice softened. "I wasn't trying to lie, I just didn't know how to tell you." Jeffrey looked at him. "At least you didn't." Tom gave a small, sad smile. "You're handling this better than most people would." Jeffrey shrugged lightly. "Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt." Tom nodded. "Yeah, I know." Jeffrey looked around the room one more time. "I felt safe here." Tom rested a hand gently on his shoulder. "You deserve to feel safe wherever you go next too." Jeffrey looked back at him. "Will you still come see me?" Tom hesitated for just a second, then nodded. "Yeah, I will." Jeffrey smiled faintly. "Good, because I'm gonna need someone on my side." Tom squeezed his shoulder. "You've got that." And in that moment, even with everything changing, one thing stayed solid: Jeffrey wasn't facing it completely alone. Peter stepped into the room, his voice sharp the moment he saw Tom. "Tom, just stay away from my family." Tom didn't respond immediately, keeping his tone controlled. "I'm not here to cause problems, I'm just making sure Jeffrey's okay." Jeffrey looked up from his chair. "Peter." But he didn't argue, he just watched quietly, exhausted from everything building up over time. Something in him had already decided it wasn't worth fighting in that moment. Peter's attention stayed fixed on Tom for another second, jaw tight. Then he turned slightly, speaking past everyone without fully looking at Jeffrey. "Wait by the van, I'm coming." Jeffrey blinked. "What?" Peter finally looked at him just for a moment. His expression was complicated, hurt, tired, and still carrying grief. "I'm taking you home," Peter said simply. Jeffrey's grip tightened on the arms of his chair. I don't understand." Tom stepped forward slightly. "Peter, this needs to be handled properly. He hasn't agreed to anything like that." Peter didn't take his eyes off Jeffrey. "He's my brother." Jeffrey's voice softened, confused. "Peter, please don't do this like this." A tense silence filled the room. Tom spoke carefully. "If Jeffrey is being discharged or moved, it has to be coordinated, not forced in the moment." Peter finally looked away. Frustration breaking through. Everything's always rules and paperwork. Ron appeared in the doorway behind him. "Those rules exist so no one gets hurt, Peter." Jeffrey sat in the middle of it all, overwhelmed again, voice quiet. "I just want someone to tell me what's actually happening." And for a moment, nobody rushed to answer him. Nurse Aaron stepped into the hallway, catching the tension immediately. His tone was blunt, trying to shut things down before it escalated. "Tom, don't even try and sue. Peter is the top lawyer in town." Tom frowned instantly. "I'm not talking about suing anyone, I'm talking about Jeffrey being treated fairly. He isn't staff, he isn't an object, he's a person, and right now he's not happy." Aaron crossed his arms. "Tom, you may need to find a new career path. You're getting too attached. Your patience with patients is starting to look unhealthy." Tom's expression tightened, but he kept his voice steady. "Caring about a patient isn't unhealthy, ignoring what they need is." Aaron shook his head. "It's crossing a line." Tom glanced down the hallway toward Jeffrey, then back. "The only line I care about is whether he feels safe or not." Aaron exhaled, frustrated. "That's exactly what I mean." Tom didn't back down. "No, what you mean is you want this simple, it is." For a moment, the hallway went quiet except for distant movement in the building. From further inside, Jeffrey's voice could be heard faintly, confused, stressed, trying to understand what was happening around him while decisions were being argued over him again. Tom lowered his voice. If caring too much is a problem here, then maybe the system is the issue, not me. Aaron didn't respond right away, just watching him with concern and warning. And Peter stood a few feet away from Jeffrey, his voice softer now but still urgent. Jeff, you don't need that place. I'm starting to work from home again, so you don't need structured care taking care of you anymore. Jeffrey looked up slowly from his chair, confused and overwhelmed. Peter, what are you talking about? Peter stepped closer. You can come with me, I can take care of you, you don't need all these people making decisions for you. Tom immediately stepped in, calm but firm. Peter, this isn't something you can just decide on the spot. Peter didn't look at him. I'm talking to my brother. Jeffrey's voice shook slightly. I don't understand, you're saying I don't need this place anymore. Peter nodded quickly. Yes, I'll be home, I'll handle everything, you'll be with family. Jeffrey hesitated, torn, but they help me, they know my routines. Peter softened a little. I can learn them, I want to, I miss too much already. Tom spoke carefully. Jeffrey, any change like that would have to be planned with your care team, you can't just be moved overnight. Peter finally turned toward Tom, frustration breaking through. Why does everything have to be controlled? Ron stepped closer from the hallway, because he deserves stability, not another sudden shift when he's already overwhelmed. Jeffrey looked between all of them, voice quieter now. Can everyone stop talking like I'm not here? The room went still. Jeffrey swallowed hard. I need time to think, I can't decide everything right now. Tom nodded immediately. That's completely fair. Ron added softly, no one is forcing you. Peter looked frustrated, but he stayed quiet this time. And for once, the decision paused long enough for Jeffrey's voice to actually matter in it. Ron stood in front of Jeffrey, his expression tense in a way Jeffrey rarely saw. Jeffrey, the care team told me if Will and I don't pay by today, you'll be kicked out. Jeffrey blinked slowly, trying to process it. What do you mean if I don't pay? Ron hesitated, then exhaled. Will and I are broke right now. The words landed heavy in the room. Jeffrey's voice dropped, so I just get kicked out. Ron shook his head quickly. It's not like that, we're trying to figure it out, we're not leaving you without options. Jeffrey looked down at his lap, overwhelmed again. Everything keeps changing. Ron softened his tone and stepped closer. Hey, look at me. Jeffrey slowly lifted his eyes. We're not dropping you, Ron said firmly. We're just in a tight spot financially, that's it, we're trying to fix it. Jeffrey's voice cracked slightly. Am I just a problem to everyone? Ron immediately shook his head. No, never, you are not a problem. Jeffrey swallowed hard, struggling to hold it together. Then why does it feel like I'm always being moved or decided for? Ron paused, then spoke more gently. Because too many people are talking about you instead of with you. Jeffrey didn't answer, just stared ahead, trying to steady his breathing. Ron crouched slightly to his level. We're going to figure this out, one step at a time, I promise. And for the first time in a while, there were no new decisions being made, just uncertainty sitting quietly in the room with him. Peter stood near the doorway, trying to sound calm even as the tension built again. Dad, don't worry, Jeffrey and I will be good. Ron narrowed his eyes slightly. Peter, did you win a case? Peter shook his head. I can't afford the group home right now. Jeffrey looked up sharply from his chair. But you could afford a trip to the UK. Peter hesitated. Someone else paid for it. Jeffrey's expression changed immediately, hurt and anger mixing. See, Dad, your able-bodied son is a gold digger but not truthful enough to help his disabled brother. Ron stepped in quickly. Jeffrey, hey, slow down. Peter's face tightened. That's not fair. Jeffrey's voice shook, but he didn't stop. Then explain it. Explain why there's money for travel but not for me staying somewhere stable. Silence dropped heavily in the room. Peter rubbed his forehead. It's not that simple. Ron spoke firmly but controlled. Then make it simple for him, because right now all he hears is inconsistency. Jeffrey's breathing got heavier. Everyone keeps saying they care, but when it matters, I'm always the thing that gets moved around. Peter's voice softened a little. Jeff, I'm not trying to replace anything, I'm trying to fix this. Jeffrey shook his head. It doesn't feel like fixing. Ron stepped closer to Jeffrey. Hey, let's pause, this is getting too heated. Jeffrey looked down, swallowing hard, trying to calm himself. Peter stayed where he was, clearly struggling too. I don't want you out of my life. Jeffrey didn't answer right away. Then quietly, then stop making me feel like I am. The room went still again, no quick solution, no easy answer, just a fragile pause where everyone finally had to sit with what was being said. Ron's voice came out firmer this time, trying to push things forward. Jeffrey, Peter knows what he's doing, now go. Jeffrey's eyes widened, hurt flashing across his face. It would be more simple if he just paid my bill. Peter stepped closer, already shifting into action mode. Let me change you before this road trip. Jeffrey pulled back slightly in his chair. This is not fair. Peter didn't slow down. Life is unfair, get used to it. That hit harder than anything else. Jeffrey's voice cracked. So that's it, I don't get a say, I just get moved around like I don't matter. Ron hesitated, clearly conflicted, but didn't immediately step in. Jeffrey looked between them, his breathing uneven. I said I needed time, no one listened. Peter stopped for a moment, frustration still there but mixed with something else. Jeff, I'm trying to help. By forcing me, Jeffrey cut in. Silence. Jeffrey's grip tightened on his chair. You think taking control fixes things, but it's the same thing that broke everything before. That landed. Peter looked away, jaw tight. Ron finally spoke, quieter now. Jeffrey, we're running out of options. Jeffrey shook his head slowly. Then say that, don't act like this is what I want. For a moment no one moved. The situation wasn't solved, but the truth was finally out in the open. This wasn't a choice for Jeffrey, it was pressure, dressed up as one. Peter's voice dropped, suddenly serious in a different way. Jeffrey, someone wants to hurt you, that's why, okay. Jeffrey's eyes narrowed immediately. You're lying. Peter shook his head. I wish I was. Before Jeffrey could react, Peter started positioning him into a manual wheelchair. Jeffrey tensed. Wait, why am I not in my power chair? Peter avoided his eyes. Because we're moving, low visibility. Jeffrey's confusion turned into alarm. Moving where? Peter finally said it. To the UK. Jeffrey's whole body went still. What? His voice was barely above a whisper now. You're taking me out of the country without even asking me. Ron stepped forward. Clearly uneasy. Peter, this is getting out of hand. Jeffrey shook his head, panic rising. No, this isn't happening, you don't just decide that, I'm not a package you ship somewhere. Peter's tone sharpened. I'm trying to keep you safe. Jeffrey fired back, voice breaking. Then tell me the truth, because right now it sounds like you're making excuses to control everything again. The room filled with tension. Ron stepped in more firmly now. Peter, stop, this isn't protection if he doesn't understand or agree. Jeffrey gripped the sides of the manual chair. I'm not going anywhere until someone explains what's really going on. For the first time, Peter hesitated, caught between urgency and the reality that he was losing Jeffrey's trust all over again. Ron spoke carefully, like he was choosing every word. Someone found out you have a trust and now there's a threat, somebody wants you dead. The room went completely still. Jeffrey stared at him. Who? Peter shook his head. We don't know. Jeffrey's breathing picked up, confusion and fear mixing together. You're telling me there's someone out there and you don't even know who it is. Ron nodded slowly. That's what we were told. Jeffrey looked between them, his voice shaking. And your solution is to just move me out of the country. Peter stepped closer. It's about keeping you out of reach until we figure it out. Jeffrey shook his head, overwhelmed. Or it's about control again. How do I know this is even real? That question hit hard. Ron's voice softened. Because we wouldn't lie about something like that. Jeffrey shot back. You already were about everything else yesterday. Silence. Peter tried again, quieter. Jeff, I know this looks bad, but if there's even a chance it's true, we can't ignore it. Jeffrey gripped the wheels of the manual chair. Then show me something, a report, a name, anything. Ron and Peter exchanged a glance. Neither of them had that. Jeffrey let out a shaky breath. So you want me to trust you with my life with no proof? No one answered right away. And in that silence, the fear wasn't just about a possible threat anymore. It was about whether he could trust the people standing right in front of him. Will rushed in, a folder in his hand, his face serious. Jeffrey, he said, opening it and showing him the papers, now do you believe them? Jeffrey looked down, scanning what he could, official-looking documents, warnings, something that made his stomach drop. His voice came out smaller, this is real. Will nodded, yes. Then his tone hardened, the stress getting to him, now stop arguing and let's go. Jeffrey flinched slightly at that, his grip tightening on the wheels. Don't talk to me like that. Ron stepped in quickly. Will, easy. Peter added quieter, he's already overwhelmed. Jeffrey looked up, hurt still in his eyes. You want me to trust you with something this big, then don't treat me like I don't get a say. Will exhaled, realizing how he came off. You're right, I'm sorry. The tension eased just a little. Ron crouched slightly to Jeffrey's level. This is serious, Jeff, but we still need you with us in this, not dragged. Jeffrey swallowed, still shaken. Then talk to me, not at me. Peter nodded, okay, we will. There was a pause. Jeffrey looked down at the papers again, then back up. If this is real, then yeah, we need a plan. Ron gave a small nod, that's all we're asking. Jeffrey hesitated, then said quietly, but I'm not just going to be moved around without understanding what's happening. Peter answered more carefully this time, then we make sure you understand every step. For the first time in a while, the fear was still there, but at least now, Jeffrey wasn't completely in the dark anymore. Ron nodded, trying to keep things moving but calmer this time. Can we just get to the airport first? We can talk more there. Jeffrey looked down for a moment, then back up at them. His voice was softer now, less angry, just overwhelmed. Okay, I'm not mad, just confused. Ron's expression softened, that makes sense. Peter stepped a little closer, more careful with his tone now. We'll explain everything, Jeff, no more rushing you without talking. Jeffrey gave a small nod, still gripping the wheels of the manual chair. I just need to understand what's happening to me. Will added quietly, and you will, we'll make sure of that. There was a pause, but this time it wasn't tense, it was uncertain but steadier. Ron gently placed a hand on Jeffrey's shoulder. Let's take this one step at a time, all right? Jeffrey nodded again, all right. As they started moving, the situation was still far from resolved, but for the first time, Jeffrey wasn't fighting them. He was going with them, hopping this time, they'd actually keep him in the conversation. As they moved through the area, Jeffrey suddenly tensed in his chair, eyes locking onto two men in the distance. Dad's Peter, his voice dropped, uneasy. I recognize those two. Ron immediately became alert. What do you mean? Jeffrey swallowed. They're always around my room when I'm sleeping. Peter's posture changed instantly, protective instincts kicking in. Are you sure? Jeffrey nodded quickly. Yeah, I didn't think anything of it before, but it's them. A chill moved through the group. Jeffrey looked down, guilt creeping into his voice. I'm sorry for not believing you guys. Ron stepped closer, his tone firm but reassuring. Hey, don't apologize, you didn't have all the information. Peter added quieter, you had every reason to question us. Will glanced toward the men, his voice low. We need to keep moving now. Jeffrey's hands tightened slightly. Are they following us? Peter positioned himself slightly behind the chair. Not if we stay ahead and stay together. Ron leaned in gently. You're safe with us, Jeff, we've got you. Jeffrey nodded, still nervous, but now the fear wasn't just confusion anymore. It was real. And for the first time, he understood why they were pushing so hard to get him out. Ron quickly pulled something out of a bag and handed it to Peter, his voice low and urgent. Here, give this to him. Peter looked at it, then turned to Jeffrey. Jeff, we need you to change, bathroom now. Jeffrey blinked, confused again. Change into what? Ron answered quickly, just trust us, it's to keep you less noticeable. Jeffrey hesitated, gripping the chair. This is a lot. Peter softened his tone a little. I know, but we need to move fast and this helps, I'll stay right outside. Jeffrey looked between them, then nodded slowly. Okay, but don't rush me this time. Ron gave a small nod. We won't. Peter carefully guided him toward the bathroom, handing him the clothes. Take your time, I'm right here. As the door closed, Ron and Will exchanged a tense look. Will whispered, you think this will work? Ron kept his eyes on the hallway. It has to. Inside, Jeffrey sat there for a moment, holding the clothes, everything happening so fast, but this time at least they were including him, even if just a little. And that made all the difference. From inside the bathroom, Jeffrey's voice came out, half disbelief, half exhausted humor. Peter, really, a pink dress. There was a brief pause outside before Peter answered, trying to keep it light. It's not about fashion, Jeff, it's about not being recognized. Jeffrey let out a small, incredulous breath. So your master plan is disguise me. Peter shrugged, even though Jeffrey couldn't see him, pretty much. From the hallway, Ron added, if those guys are watching for you, they're not expecting that. Jeffrey shook his head, a faint, tired smile slipping through despite everything. This is insane. Peter's tone softened. Yeah, it kind of is, but it might work. There was a moment of silence, then Jeffrey muttered, you owe me for this. Peter let out a quiet huff of a laugh, noted. A few minutes passed. Then Jeffrey opened the door slightly, still adjusting. Okay, don't make a big deal out of it. Peter glanced over, then quickly looked away to respect him. No big deal. Ron gave a small nod. You ready? Jeffrey took a breath, as I'll ever be. Even in the middle of fear and urgency, the moment broke just enough tension to remind them they were still a family, trying to hold it together in a very strange situation. They finally settled onto the plane, the noise of boarding and engines filling the space. Jeffrey sat quietly, clearly uncomfortable, tugging slightly at the dress. I hate this. Peter leaned closer, keeping his voice low. Just go by Jen for now, okay? Jeffrey sighed, defeated but understanding. Okay. Ron reached over, gently placing a hand on his shoulder. You're doing good, Jen. Jeffrey gave a small, tired nod, staring out the window. I just want this to be over. Will, sitting across the aisle, added softly, we'll get through this, one step at a time. Jeffrey leaned his head back, closing his eyes. Everything felt unreal, being rushed out, the disguise, the fear, but at least now he wasn't being left in the dark. Peter glanced at him. Try to rest, I've got you. Jeffrey didn't respond, but he didn't pull away either. As the plane began to move, lifting them away from everything familiar, Jeffrey held onto one thought. He might not like it, but for now he was choosing to trust them. Peter looked over at Jeffrey, his voice quieter now. I'm sorry. Jeffrey didn't look at him right away. You wanted me safe first, I get it. Peter shook his head slightly. Yes, but I'm talking about Mom's last days. She didn't want you to see her go like that. It was me, Dad, and Grandma with her. Jeffrey went still. Peter continued more carefully. She was trying to protect you from remembering her that way. That's why things happened the way they did. Jeffrey's voice came out small, so I didn't get a choice. Peter lowered his eyes. No, not in that moment, and I know that hurts. A long silence settled between them. Ron, sitting nearby, spoke gently. Jeff, she loved you, that part never changed. Jeffrey stared down at his hands. It just feels like I was left out of everything important. Peter nodded slowly. I know, and I can't undo that. Jeffrey swallowed hard. Then what am I supposed to do with it? Peter hesitated. Just don't think it was because you didn't matter. It was because she mattered to all of us and she was suffering. Jeffrey leaned back, eyes glassy. I wish someone had told me the truth instead of deciding for me. Ron answered softly, that's fair. For the first time, Peter didn't argue. And in the quiet of the plane, there was no fixing it, only the painful truth sitting between them, finally spoken out loud.